I'm not going to sit here and tell you the newest hack or the newest trick on how to get better margins because this method, this trick, isn't new. This started in the 1900s with the Industrial Revolution, specifically implemented in more closer to the 1920s. So this is still widely used today, and it all started pretty much in the Industrial Revolution. And it started because of a need for products to be better. This is when factories were starting to come online. People were just realizing how to make these products in a more efficient way using assembly lines. But what they're also realizing is during this time, there's a whole bunch of defects. Maybe it's the machinery used, maybe it's the training, whatever it may be. They're seeing defects stack up one after another. Something's not threading right. This part doesn't fit. This part's breaking. Whatever it may be, they're realizing that on the line, and they realize they need to make changes and they need to optimize their process in production. And that's when the quality principles were born. I know what you're thinking. Thanks for the history lesson, Ryan. How does that actually help me? I'm not in a factory. I'm not trying to develop these processes in a factory to reduce returns. And yes, that's very true. But as somebody who sells on Amazon, if you, let's say you have a contract with a supplier and that contract says I need 1,000 units from supplier. Okay. And if they're in a rush and they have a whole bunch of other orders they need to hit, they might drop on some of their QC quality checks that were implemented and still are being implemented since the Industrial Revolution. All of these, they're going to start skipping some, maybe start cutting some corners to make sure you get your shipment out and they can get their money too. So you need to be diligent in making sure that they're not cutting corners. What agreements do you have with you and your product and your supplier? There need to be all three layers to say you have an agreement on what the product should perform like. They're agreeing to said performance as well. Because if they're not doing that, you might be getting more and more returns. And returns aren't an easy thing too, because if you get returns, you're paying a whole bunch of fees. So you might be asking again, great, Ryan, thanks for scaring me. How do I go ahead and now reduce these returns? And that's where you get what's called a returns reduction project, an RR project. And what that is exactly what it sounds like. You're reducing returns for your category or for your item so you can pay less of these fees, less of the product that you're losing. The customer is keeping the product in their hands. And it helps a lot with all these charges and fees that are coming on Amazon selling specifically. So now I'm more talking about to Amazon sellers who are doing the FBA. Amazon's fulfilling your product because they have a whole bunch of fees now that apply to you. And this can be anything from return shipment charges. So that's when a customer says they want to return a product and you have to print the label for said product. So you need to pay for them to have their label if they choose a certain return reason. So think about if they said that the product was defective, then you would actually have to pay for the label rather than if they selected an option like I just didn't want it anymore or I clicked the wrong item. But customers are getting savvy enough and they use Amazon enough to realize that if I just choose that it's defective, regardless of whether it was or not, they won't have to pay for the shipping label and you'll have to pay for the shipping label. So that's one of the things that you want to look for. And you could check this by going into your central selling and seeing in your central selling if you have a category called return shipping labels. And you could see all of the charges for said labels. All that can be broken up, all that can be added up, and all that can be avoided too. Especially for one of the later causes too. One of the later fees are actually stacked up based on how often your product is returned compared to the category. But before I get into that, I want to talk about the refund administration fee. This is a fee, this is the lesser of all of the fees, and it's essentially $5 or the 20% of the referral fees. It's the lesser of the two, and just based on your product, it's an additional fee you'll have to pay. It won't be adding up too much, but it's definitely another one that you'll have to pay attention to. The worst of the fees is new in 2024. This was called the returns processing fee. And this is what I was talking about earlier with when you have a product category. Let's say you have apparel. Apparel is generally a high returns rate, even if somebody says they return the category or they return the product because they got a sweatshirt and the sweatshirt was just too large. They ordered a large and a medium. The medium fit them better, so they just returned the large. And they're completely allowed to do that, but you're also paying for that shipping label. So make sure that you're reviewing that and you're giving the customer the best amount of information so you could hopefully reduce some of that a bit. But either way, if you're in the apparel category, your returns are going to be a little higher, or actually kind of a lot higher if you think about 10 to 15% compared to another category like grocery, where somebody's buying the product, keeping it at their home, and if it expires or something like that, they might just throw it away. The customer understands what they're getting when they order an apple compared to a couple different sweatshirt sizes. So naturally, one category is going to have less returns than another. So you need to make sure that you're under the return average category, and then that way you're reducing all these fees, because these fees can really add up too. And if you look at your product and you look at your category, and there's a big difference between there too, and you want to start a returns reduction process, look at the school community below. I have the link in the description. For currently $1 a month, I will help you with all of these projects. I need referrals right now to help build the case on why others should join. So I'm doing it right now for $1, which will have a crazy ROI to save you thousands on these return reduction processes. Let me know down below. I also have these 2 other videos you could click on that discuss specifically how some of these products are being reviewed, how I break them down, and how they can be fixed generally with a PDP conversation or a small product change.